Let's get into this now with CBS News contributor and New York Times Magazine chief national correspondent, Mark Leibovich. He joins me from Los Angeles. Mark, so let's talk about this feud between the president-elect and Congressman John Lewis. What do you make of the difference in how Congressman approached his criticism of the president-elect in that interview with NBC versus Mr. Trump's tweeting?
Well, I mean, traditionally, the president, the president's going to be criticized. I mean, legitimacy is a pretty strong word, and that's what John Lewis said, that, he didn't find Donald Trump to be a legitimate president. But typically, presidents have stood down. I mean, they have sort of been bigger than taking on every fight like this, and President-elect Trump, true to his precedent over the last year and a half, has been just to double down on this. John Lewis has been, to this point, very much a sacred cow in American politics. He's someone who has a great deal of affection on both sides of the aisle. This is not traditionally a fight that's been picked. And what's interesting is that there was a lot of talk that going into this week, President-elect Trump would go into more of a healing mode in anticipation for the inauguration. This seems to, quite obviously be 180 degrees opposite of this. So. Look, it seems like more of the same. I assume this is going to be the style that he follows going into his presidency.
Certainly there will be some people who will disagree with Congressman Lewis's position about the president-elect's legitimacy, but I want to go back to the tweets that Donald Trump has been launching since this interview came out, specifically the one that we put up there for our viewers, where he says Congressman John Lewis should spend more time on fixing and helping his district, which is in horrible shape, falling apart, not to mention crime-infested. We've got some statistics here. This comes to us from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. So the median household income in the 5th Congressional District, which John Lewis represents, which includes the towns of Buckhead and Bankhead, is about $48,000, which is slightly higher than Georgia's median, but below the national median of $56,000. But in that district, you've got the Ritz-Carlton, you've got the Coca-Cola Company, Delta Airlines, Georgia Tech, Emory University, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Nearly 9 out of 10 residents of the 5th Congressional District are high school graduates or have education beyond high school, and about 4 out of 10 residents had at least a bachelor's degree. That's according to the census. So I guess I'm trying to understand, what's he talking about when he says that his district is crime-infested? Is that just a dog whistle?
It could be. I mean, look, I can't sort of speak to what Donald Trump is thinking or doing here. I think like any other major metropolitan area district, or so many, there's obviously a pretty mixed demographic background. I mean, I think a lot of his supporters would sort of see John Lewis. I mean, most Americans don't have a very deep knowledge of what his district represents, and say, yes, of course it's a dog whistle. In fact, they would actually go further and actually listen to the dog whistle and say, this is someone that we would associate with crime, with burning was the word that Donald Trump used. And I mean, look, it's a big fight. These are very, very highly charged words. There's obviously going to be a lot of blowback. And again, you sort of have to wonder, is this where Donald Trump's heart is, or is this intentional? I mean, I think it's probably a good bet that a lot of his supporters are not going to hold this against him at all. This is the kind of thing that they would say, and his people actually do say, that elites get much more worked up about than the quote-unquote real Americans that elected him. I think that's a paradigm we're going to be seeing going back to, again and again. I think this is the latest example of it, but it's especially highly charged and quite unfortunate, especially during Martin Luther King weekend.
You make a great point there, Mark. I want to ask you, so in your reporting and the folks that you've talked to there in Washington, D.C., many Democrats, many members of Congress perhaps think the way that John Lewis thinks, but they have not been as vocal as he has. And there are many Democrats, and of course Bernie Sanders, who will be attending the inauguration. But I wonder if Congressman Lewis's position now means that we may see more Democrats coming out and saying what he said, or will they continue to just voice that to perhaps members of the press, but without actually going on the record?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we've seen since the remarks is a number of them have said they're not going to the inauguration. I think that probably will have some effect on the margins. I don't think it'll change any minds at all. I mean, I think what's interesting and what will be interesting to watch going forward is what Republicans do. I mean, I think right now there's a fairly predictable drumbeat of Democrats sort of rallying publicly around John Lewis. I can tell you from my own conversations with people around Congress, people within the Republican Party, that there's a great deal of frustration, but private frustration, not on the record frustration among Republicans. They wish they would stop. I mean, one Republican who did go on the record is Justin Amash, a conservative Republican congressman from Michigan, who basically on Saturday night after the second tweet that Donald Trump put out about John Lewis, just said simply, dude, stop, or stop it, or something like that. So, you do have to wonder at what point are more Republicans going to go public, because privately there is a great deal of frustration. I mean, there's no question about it. But, I mean, they have proven again and again and again that there has been an unwillingness, probably out of political expediency more than anything, to go public with this frustration. We'll see how long that lasts.
Mark, I want to ask you a last question real quick. Yesterday, Mr. Trump also used Twitter to lash out at CIA Director John Brennan, ironically because the CIA Director suggested that the president-elect might be a little too reckless with his tweets. And Donald Trump saying on Twitter that Brennan couldn't do much worse, and asking, was this the leaker of fake news? How do you think this latest round of attacks will go over with the intelligence community, when we heard from the Director of National Intelligence, James Clapper, last week saying that that many members of the intelligence community feel as if they're being disparaged by the president-elect? He's going to have to work with these guys. In fact, he's going to be leading them in a few days.
He'll be their boss. Yeah, I mean, how it's going to go over within the intelligence community, the answer to that, I think, is poorly. I don't see how there's any other answer to that. I mean, it's unclear, I mean, what the purpose is in sort of trying to win a back and forth kind of public relations battle over, like, how people feel about the intelligence community, how people feel about, I mean, the American population feels about the quality of intelligence. I mean, the fact is that the intelligence community has a great deal of power and a great deal of ability to make Donald Trump's life very, very much more complicated, let's say, going forward, especially after he becomes their boss. I think this is one of the reasons why so many people think that, there's just going to be so many surprises, so many sort of unforeseen circumstances in this administration, and frankly, why a lot of reporters, like many of my colleagues, are pretty excited, just because a lot of them are pretty well sourced with a lot of these people who have a lot of this information. So again, I mean, it's very consistent with Donald Trump's MO to sort of continue and to pick any fight he can. The question is, what's the fallback, or what's the fallout going to be, especially after he's the one in charge? Yeah,
and Mark, and I know we got to wrap this up, but I'm trying to understand who the audience is. I mean, who is the people have already voted for him. He won the election. He's not campaigning anymore. It's interesting that you used the word PR campaign, because I hadn't heard of it sort of expressed that way, but that's what it sounds like. He's trying to win some kind of a PR battle with the intelligence community here, but to what end?
Unclear. I mean, look, I wish the question is, I'm trying to understand what Donald Trump is thinking on this. I mean, I don't have an answer to that. I don't think any of us does. I think what is interesting is there have been no Republicans really of any prominence who have backed up Donald Trump in this, who have said, the intelligence community has been derelict, who's done a terrible job. Again, that's Donald Trump as a singular and obviously very powerful and very, very loud voice out there. Again, I mean, you obviously have a very powerful bully pulpit, especially when you have a Twitter account. Donald Trump has proven, when you're president. But the question is, how much impact does it have if it is in fact a solitary voice? So, I mean, that's one of many questions we have going forward. As always, maybe we reserve the right to see if there's some mad genius behind what Donald Trump is doing. But as far as as far as what I can tell, there's nothing readily apparent right now.
All right, Mark Leibovich, as always, we thank you, my friend.
Thanks, Vlad.